The alarm screamed through the corridors of the Sejong's Pride. Hyunwoo ran toward the medical bay, his boots pounding against the metal floor. Explosions rocked the ship from side to side. Red emergency lights flashed everywhere. All hands to escape pods. The captain's voice crackled over the speakers. "We're under attack. This is not a drill." Hyunwoo grabbed the wall as another blast hit the ship. He had been a combat medic for 6 years, but nothing prepared him for this. The human exploration vessel had been mapping an empty star system. They thought they were alone out here. They were wrong. Through the windows he saw them. Massive dark ships surrounded the Sejong's Pride. They looked like giant metal serpents covered in sharp angles and glowing red lights. These were Valkyrie warships. Everyone in human space had heard the stories. The Valkyrie Dominion ruled 400 star systems with an iron fist. They did not like visitors. Dr. Hyunwoo, a young ensign, stumbled into the hallway, blood streaming from a cut on her forehead. The engine room took a direct hit. "We have wounded." Hyunwoo made a choice. The escape pods were 50 meters away. The wounded were in the opposite direction. He turned and ran toward the engine room. A doctor's duty came first. The engine room was chaos. Smoke filled the air. 3 crew members lay on the floor. Hyunwoo dropped to his knees beside the first one, dead. The second had a piece of metal stuck in his chest. Hyunwoo checked his pulse. Still alive, but barely. The third was conscious, but his leg was crushed under fallen equipment. "It's okay," Hyunwoo said calmly. "I'm here now." He worked fast. He injected painkillers and stopped the bleeding as best he could. His hands moved with practiced skill. Save what you can, do no harm. Those were the rules he lived by. Another explosion shook the ship. The lights went out completely. Emergency power kicked in seconds later, but Hyunwoo knew it was over. The Sejong's Pride was dying. Heavy footsteps echoed in the corridor. Not human footsteps. These were heavier, with a strange clicking sound. Hyunwoo looked up as massive figures appeared in the doorway. The Valkyrie were even more frightening in person than in the videos. They stood nearly 8 feet tall. Their bodies were covered in dark green scales that looked like armor. Their faces were long and reptilian with yellow eyes that seemed to glow in the dim light. They wore black military uniforms and carried weapons that hummed with energy. "Humans," one of them hissed. The translator device on his chest turned the sounds into words Hyunwoo could understand. "On the floor now." Hyunwoo raised his hands. "I'm a doctor. I have wounded here. Please, they need help." The Valkyrie soldiers laughed. It was a harsh, cold sound. "Humans do not give orders." The leader stepped forward and grabbed Hyunwoo by his uniform, lifting him off the ground like he weighed nothing. "You are prisoners of the Valkyrie Dominion now." They dragged Hyunwoo and the other survivors through the broken ship. Bodies of crew members lay in the corridors. Hyunwoo's heart ached, but he stayed silent. Showing emotion might make things worse. The Valkyrie transported them to one of their ships. The interior was dark and cold. The walls were made of black metal covered in strange symbols that glowed red. Everything smelled like oil and something else Hyunwoo could not identify. Something sharp and bitter. They threw the human prisoners into a large holding cell. There were 37 survivors from a crew of 72. Hyunwoo immediately started checking the wounded. He had no equipment, no supplies, but he did what he could with torn pieces of clothing and water from a dirty pipe in the corner. "What will they do to us?" a young navigator asked. Her name was Sujin. She was only 23 years old. "I don't know," Hyunwoo admitted. "But we're alive. That's something." The Valkyrie ship traveled for 3 days. The prisoners got one small meal each day of something that tasted like wet cardboard. The cell was cramped and cold. Many of the wounded got worse without proper medical care. 2 more died despite Hyunwoo's efforts. On the 4th day, something changed. The ship lurched suddenly. Alarms started blaring in the Valkyrie language. The prisoners looked at each other nervously. "What's happening?" someone whispered. Through the small window in their cell, Hyunwoo saw flashes of light. Another battle. The ship shook violently. Something had gone wrong. Then came the screaming. Valkyrie screaming. The sounds echoed through the walls. Hyunwoo heard shouting in their language and the sound of running feet. More explosions. The lights flickered. 20 minutes later, 2 Valkyrie guards appeared at the cell door. One of them was badly injured. He had a huge wound in his side, and purple blood poured onto the floor. The other guard was dragging him. "You," the uninjured guard pointed at Hyunwoo. "You said you were a healer." Hyunwoo stood up slowly. Yes, Keltar is dying. Our medical priests say there is nothing they can do. The bleeding inside cannot be stopped. The guard's yellow eyes were desperate. If you can save him, I will speak for you. If you cannot, he raised his weapon. You will die with him. Hyunwoo looked at the wounded Valkyrie. This was his enemy. These people had killed his friends and his crew. They had taken his freedom. But Hyunwoo saw only a patient bleeding to death on the floor. Bring him into the cell. I need light and clean water. And something sharp. The guards hesitated. You want weapons? I want tools. I'm a doctor. I don't fight. I heal. Something in Hyunwoo's voice made them believe him. They dragged Keltar into the cell and brought what he asked for. A small knife. A bottle of clear liquid that might have been alcohol. Some clean cloth. Not much, but Hyunwoo had worked with less. He knelt beside the wounded Valkyrie. The alien's breathing was shallow. His scales had turned a pale, sickly color. Hyunwoo had never treated a Valkyrie before. He had never even seen one up close until a few days ago, but he had studied alien biology in school. He had always been good at seeing patterns, at understanding how living things worked. Valkyrie were reptiles. Their bodies were not so different from Earth reptiles. Different size, different complexity, but the basic principles were the same. Blood vessels, organs, systems that needed to work together to keep life going. Hyunwoo's hands moved carefully. He cleaned the wound. He found the source of the bleeding. A major vessel had been torn. Using the knife and some wire pulled from the cell wall, he tied off the bleeding. His hands were steady even though his heart was racing. The other prisoners watched in silence. The Valkyrie guards watched too, their weapons ready. It took an hour. When Hyunwoo finally sat back, his hands were covered in purple blood. Keltar was still alive. His breathing had gotten stronger. The bleeding had stopped. He needs rest and proper medicine, Hyunwoo said quietly. But he'll live, the guards stared at him. One of them spoke rapidly into a communication device. Then they both knelt on one knee. It was a gesture of respect. You have done what our own healers could not, one guard said. This will be reported to Commander Ravnell. They took Keltar away. The prisoners gathered around Hyunwoo. That was incredible, Sujin whispered. You saved his life. I did my job, Hyunwoo said simply. But inside he was shaking. He had just saved the life of an enemy soldier. He did not know if that made him a good person or a fool. 2 hours later, the guards came back. You human healer. Come with us, Hyunwoo stood. The other prisoners looked terrified. Where are you taking him? Sujin demanded. Commander Ravnell wants to see the mammal who saved Keltar's life. The guard looked at Hyunwoo with something that might have been curiosity. You are either very skilled or very lucky. We will find out which. They put restraints on Hyunwoo's wrists and led him out of the cell. As he walked through the dark corridors of the Valkyrie ship, he wondered if he had made the right choice. He had saved a life. That was what doctors did. But he had also shown the Valkyrie that humans could be useful. And useful prisoners, Hyunwoo suspected, might be treated very differently than useless ones. The guard stopped at a large door. It slid open with a hiss. Inside was a command center filled with screens and control panels. At the center stood a Valkyrie who was clearly in charge. He wore more elaborate armor and carried himself with absolute authority. I am Commander Ravnell, the Valkyrie said. His voice was deep and cold. You saved one of my soldiers. This is unexpected. Hyunwoo met his gaze. I'm a doctor. It's what I do. Indeed. Ravnell circled him slowly. Most interesting. Tell me, human doctor, how many more lives can you save? The transport ship dropped through thick purple clouds. Hyunwoo watched through a small window as a massive planet appeared below. Cities covered the surface like glowing webs. This was Elthar Prime, the capital of the Valkyrie Dominion. He had been separated from the other prisoners 3 days ago. While they were sent to mining colonies in distant systems, Hyunwoo was brought here. Commander Ravnell had decided that a human who could heal was too valuable to waste in the mines. The ship landed on a platform high above the city. Valkyrie guards escorted Hyunwoo through corridors of polished black stone. Everything on this planet seemed designed to make visitors feel small and powerless. The ceilings were too high. The doors were too wide. The temperature was too cold for human comfort. They brought him to a building that looked like a fortress and a hospital combined. Inside, wounded Valkyrie soldiers filled rows of beds. Medical priests moved between them, chanting prayers and applying treatments that glowed with strange colors. The priests wore long robes and masks that covered most of their faces. "This is where you will work," Commander Ravenel said. He had accompanied Hyunwoo personally. "Our war with the Ashkin Collective continues. Soldiers return wounded every day. You will treat them." Hyunwoo looked around. "I'll need supplies, equipment, access to medical databases. You will have what you need." "Within limits." Ravenel's yellow eyes narrowed. "But understand this, human. You are not free. You are a tool. A useful tool is maintained and protected. A broken tool is discarded. Do not become broken." They took Hyunwoo to a small room. It was plain but clean. A bed, a desk, a bathroom. Compared to the prison cell, it was luxury. But the door locked from the outside. It was still a cage. Hours later, a guard brought him to the medical center. His first patient was already waiting. A young Velkari soldier with burns covering half his body. The medical priests stood around the bed, shaking their heads. "The fire damage is too severe," one priest said. "The sacred texts say such wounds cannot be healed." "He will die by morning." Hyunwoo stepped forward. "Let me try." The priests looked at him with contempt. "You? A mammal? You know nothing of Velkari healing." "Maybe not, but I know about burns." Hyunwoo moved to the bedside. The soldier was unconscious. His breathing was weak. "I've treated burn victims before. Different species, same principles." One priest started to protest, but Commander Ravenel held up a hand. "Let him work. If the soldier dies, it changes nothing. If the human succeeds," he smiled coldly, "then perhaps the sacred texts are incomplete." Hyunwoo examined the patient carefully. Velkari skin was different from human skin, but burns were burns. Tissue damage, fluid loss, infection risk. He could work with this. He spent 6 hours treating the soldier. He cleaned the wounds and applied gel that the Velkari used for healing. He set up fluid drips to prevent dehydration. He monitored vital signs constantly. The medical priests watched in silence, their expressions unreadable behind their masks. By morning, the soldier's condition had stabilized. He was still critical, but he was alive. The improvement was obvious. The lead priest stared at Hyunwoo. "This is irregular. The texts say—" "The texts were written by people who did their best with what they knew," Hyunwoo interrupted. "But knowledge grows. Medicine improves. You can follow old books or you can save lives. Your choice." The priest's scales darkened with anger, but he said nothing. Commander Ravenel nodded slowly. "Interesting. Very interesting indeed." Days turned into weeks. Hyunwoo treated more patients. He worked long hours in the medical center. Some cases were easy. Others pushed the limits of his knowledge. But he learned quickly. He observed Velkari anatomy and physiology. He adapted human medical techniques to alien biology. The medical priest resented him. They whispered among themselves and gave him dark looks. Their leader, a priest named Genkal, was especially hostile. But Commander Ravenel had given orders. The human healer was to be protected and allowed to work. One evening, a guard brought someone new to Hyunwoo's room. A human man, thin and tired-looking, with clever eyes behind broken glasses. "You're Hyunwoo?" the man asked in Korean. "The doctor everyone's talking about." Hyunwoo felt relief wash over him. "Another human." Someone who spoke his language. "Yes, who are you?" "I'm Dae-hyun. I was an engineer on a colony ship. The Velkari captured us 2 years ago." He sat down on the floor, keeping his voice low. "Listen, we don't have much time. The guards think I'm here to repair the ventilation system in your room, but I needed to talk to you. How did you— I've learned how to move around this place without too much attention. The Velkari think all humans are the same. They don't watch us as carefully as they should." Dae-hyun pulled out a small device from his pocket. "There are 300 human prisoners on this planet. Most work in factories. Some, like you, have special skills they need. We've formed a network. We communicate. We share information. And we haven't given up on getting home." Hyunwoo's heart raced. "Earth knows we're here? Maybe, probably, but rescue is complicated. This is the heart of Velkari space. Any human fleet would be destroyed before it got close." Dae-hyun handed him the device. It was no bigger than a coin. "Hide this. Press the center when you're alone. It connects to our network. You can send messages, receive news. You're not alone anymore. Why are you helping me? Because you're important. The Velkari are talking about you, a human who can heal what their priests cannot." Dae-hyun smiled. "That makes you valuable." and valuable prisoners have leverage. Before Hyunwoo could respond, voices echoed in the hallway. Daehyun stood quickly. I have to go. Be careful. Trust no one. But know that we're watching out for you. He left as suddenly as he had arrived. Hyunwoo hid the device under his mattress and tried to calm his racing thoughts. 3 days later, everything changed. Commander Ravnell appeared at the medical center with a group of soldiers. Behind them walked a young Velkari female in elegant robes. She moved with grace, but Hyunwoo could see she was in pain. This is Princess Mirza, Ravnell announced, daughter of Emperor Halton. She has been ill for weeks. Our best medical priests have tried everything. Nothing works, Jenkal stepped forward. The sacred texts are clear. Her symptoms indicate, I do not care what the texts say. Ravnell's voice was sharp. The princess suffers. The emperor demands results. He turned to Hyunwoo. You will examine her. You will find what our priests have missed. Hyunwoo felt all eyes on him. This was dangerous. If he failed to help the emperor's daughter, he would likely die. But if he succeeded, he might gain protection that even Commander Ravnell could not provide. I'll do my best, Hyunwoo said. Princess Mirza studied him with intelligent eyes. She was young, perhaps equivalent to a human teenager. You are the mammal healer everyone speaks of. You do not follow the old ways. I follow what works, Your Highness, she nodded slightly. Then examine me. I am tired of priests who offer only prayers. Hyunwoo conducted the examination carefully. He asked questions about her symptoms: pain in the joints, fatigue, difficulty breathing at times. The medical priest had diagnosed it as a spiritual imbalance and prescribed meditation and herbal remedies. But as Hyunwoo listened and observed, he recognized something. He had seen similar symptoms before, back on Earth. Not in humans, but in reptiles at the Xenobiology Research Center where he had trained. With respect, Princess, I don't think this is spiritual at all. I think you have a parasitic infection, something very small living in your bloodstream. The medical priests gasped. Jenkal stepped forward angrily. Impossible. The princess's blood has been tested. It is pure? Pure by your tests, maybe. But these parasites are tiny. You'd need specific equipment to find them. Hyunwoo turned to Ravnell. I need access to a high-powered microscope. And I need a blood sample. You dare to draw royal blood? Jenkal hissed. Princess Mirza held up her hand. If the mammal healer is correct, then I want to know. Take the sample. Hyunwoo worked through the night. He examined the princess's blood under the best microscope the facility had. And there, swimming among the blood cells, he found them. Tiny parasites, almost invisible. They were similar to a disease that affected Earth lizards but adapted to Velkari biology. He developed a treatment plan. It was risky. He would need to use strong medicine that might have side effects. But without treatment, the parasites would eventually damage the princess's heart. He explained everything to Princess Mirza. She listened carefully, asking intelligent questions. Finally, she nodded. Do it. I trust your knowledge more than their traditions. The treatment took 2 weeks. Hyunwoo monitored the princess constantly. Slowly, her symptoms improved. Her energy returned. The pain faded. By the end of the 2nd week, she was completely recovered. The news spread through the imperial court like fire. The human prisoner had cured the emperor's daughter. The medical priests were humiliated. Jenkal looked at Hyunwoo with pure hatred, but Princess Mirza was grateful. She visited Hyunwoo in the medical center. You saved my life. My father has granted you new privileges. You may walk in certain areas without guards. You may request books and equipment. You are under imperial protection now. I just did my job, Your Highness. No, she smiled. You did what our priests could not. You saw what they refused to see. She leaned closer. 6 months had passed since Hyunwoo saved Princess Mirza. His life in the golden cage had become routine. He treated wounded soldiers during the day and studied Velkari biology at night. His reputation grew. Warriors requested him specifically. Nobles paid bribes to ensure he would treat their family members. The medical priests hated him more with each success. Jenkal especially watched him with cold eyes, waiting for a mistake. But Princess Mirza's protection held strong. She visited the medical center regularly, learning from Hyunwoo, asking endless questions about human medicine. Why do humans heal so differently? She asked one afternoon. They were examining a patient together, a soldier with a complicated fracture. Because we ask questions, Hyunwoo explained. We test, we experiment. We're not afraid to be wrong because being wrong teaches us how to be right. Mirsa's scales brightened with interest. This was how Velkari showed emotion, Hyunwoo had learned. The priests say questions show lack of faith. The sacred texts contain all wisdom. The texts contain the wisdom of people who lived long ago. They did their best, but now we know more. Hyunwoo carefully set the soldier's broken bone. Medicine should grow. It should change. Otherwise people die who could have lived. You make it sound so simple. It is simple. Life over tradition. Always. A week later, the guards brought someone new to Hyunwoo's room. A human woman, young, with tired eyes and hands stained with ink. She bowed nervously. "I'm Boram," she said in Korean. "They told me I'm to be your translator." Hyunwoo was confused. "I have a translation device." "For medical terms, the devices are not good enough," Boram explained. "Commander Ravnell wants perfect communication. No mistakes. I was a linguist before." She trailed off. "Before capture, before everything changed." "I'm glad to have help," Hyunwoo said gently. "And glad to have another Korean speaker around." Boram smiled weakly. Over the following days, they worked together constantly. She helped Hyunwoo explain complex medical concepts to Velkari patients. She translated ancient medical texts so he could understand what the priest had learned over centuries. Slowly, they became friends. "Daehyun says you're part of the network now," Boram whispered one evening. They were alone in the medical storage room, organizing supplies. "He says you have the communication device." "Yes, he gave it to me months ago." "Good. We have news." Boram's voice dropped even lower. "Human ships have been spotted at the border of Velkari space. Not military ships, diplomatic vessels. Earth hasn't forgotten us." Hyunwoo's heart jumped. "They're negotiating for our release?" "Maybe, but the Velkari Emperor is stubborn. He sees prisoners as property." Boram touched his arm. "Be careful, Hyunwoo. You're more valuable than you realize. They won't let you go easily." That night, Hyunwoo lay awake thinking. Home seemed so far away. He had adapted to this strange life, but he missed Earth. He missed freedom. He missed being able to walk under an open sky without guards watching. The next morning, everything exploded. Commander Ravnell appeared at the medical center with a large group of soldiers. Behind them stood Jenkal and 5 other high-ranking medical priests. "Human healer." Jenkal's voice was cold and formal. "I accuse you of practicing corrupted medicine. You defy the sacred text. You poison Velkari minds with mammalian superstition. You have led Princess Mirsa astray from the proper path. This cannot continue." Hyunwoo stood his ground. "I've saved hundreds of lives. You have broken sacred traditions hundreds of times." Jenkal pointed dramatically. "The Imperial Medical Council has agreed. You will face trial. If found guilty of medical heresy, the penalty is death." Commander Ravnell looked uncomfortable. "The Emperor has granted permission for this trial. Even I cannot stop it." Princess Mirsa pushed through the crowd. "This is madness. He saved my life. He saved countless others. Which is why the trial must be public and fair," Jenkal said smoothly. "We will prove before all the court that the old ways are superior, that the sacred texts contain all necessary wisdom." He smiled at Hyunwoo. "You will have 3 days to prepare your defense." They took Hyunwoo back to his room. Guards stood outside his door. He was not quite a prisoner again, but close enough. Boram was allowed to visit, bringing food and news. "This is bad," she said, her hands shaking. "Medical heresy trials are serious. The priests have absolute authority over medical matters, then I'll challenge that authority. They'll kill you, maybe." Hyunwoo felt strangely calm. Or maybe it's time someone questioned why authority matters more than results. Daehyun contacted him through the device that night. "We can try to help you escape. I've mapped the ventilation systems. There are human workers in the lower levels who—" "No," Hyunwoo interrupted. "If I run, they'll punish other humans. Besides, I think I need to face this. You're insane." "Probably." The trial took place in a massive hall in the Imperial Palace. Hundreds of Velkari filled the seats. Nobles, warriors, priests. Even Emperor Halten himself sat on a throne at the far end, watching with ancient eyes. Hyunwoo stood in the center of the hall. Across from him, Jenkal and the medical priests formed an intimidating line. Princess Mirsa sat in the front row, looking worried. Boram stood nearby, ready to translate every word. The head of the Imperial Medical Council, an ancient priest named Torvan, began the proceedings. We are here to judge the actions of the human healer called Hyunwoo. He stands accused of practicing medicine that defies our sacred traditions. Jenkal, present your case. Jenkal stepped forward. He spoke for over an hour, listing every time Hyunwoo had done something differently from the texts. Every technique that was new, every treatment that had no historical basis in Velkari medical tradition. He rejects the wisdom of our ancestors, Jenkal concluded. He spreads dangerous ideas. He teaches our youth, including the princess herself, to question what should not be questioned. This threatens the very foundation of Velkari medical practice, the crowd murmured. Many nodded in agreement. The old ways were sacred. Change was dangerous. Human healer, Torvan said. Speak your defense. Hyunwoo took a deep breath. Boram stood beside him, translating his words to the entire hall. I respect the wisdom in your sacred texts, he began. The healers who wrote them were skilled and intelligent. They saved many lives, but they were also limited by what they knew. They didn't have microscopes to see tiny organisms. They didn't understand how infection spreads. They did their best with the knowledge they had. You admit the texts are flawed, Jenkal shouted. I'm saying knowledge grows. What we know today is more than what anyone knew 1,000 years ago. And what we know 1,000 years from now will be more than what we know today. Hyunwoo looked around the hall. Medicine is not about following books. It's about saving lives. Should we let patients die because a book written long ago doesn't describe their illness? The texts describe all illnesses, Jenkal insisted. Then how did Princess Mirza survive? Your text said her condition was incurable. But I cured it. Does that make the text wrong, or does it mean the texts were incomplete? The crowd stirred. This was a dangerous argument. To question the texts was to question everything Velkari medical priests stood for. Torvan leaned forward. You make bold claims, human. Can you prove your methods are superior? I can. Hyunwoo gestured to the soldiers in the crowd. How many warriors here have I treated? How many were told by the priests that their injuries were fatal? Stand up if the human healer saved your life after the priests had given up. Silence for a moment. Then one soldier stood, then another. Then 5 more, then 20. Soon nearly 100 Velkari were standing. Warriors whose lives Hyunwoo had saved when traditional medicine had failed. The hall erupted in noise. Jenkal's face darkened with rage. This proves nothing. Perhaps they would have recovered naturally. Or perhaps, Hyunwoo said quietly, new methods work better than old ones. Not because the old ways were bad, but because medicine improves when we're willing to learn. Torvan looked at Emperor Halton. The emperor had been silent throughout the trial. Now he stirred, his ancient scales shifting. I have a question for the human, the emperor said. His voice was like rocks grinding together. Why should we adopt your methods? Why should we abandon traditions that have served us for thousands of years? Hyunwoo met the emperor's gaze. Because traditions serve the living, not the other way around. If a tradition saves lives, keep it. If it costs lives, change it. He paused. I saved your daughter's life, Your Majesty. Not because I'm better than your priests, but because I was willing to look for answers they had been taught not to seek. The emperor was silent for a long moment. Finally he spoke. Jenkal, you claim the human practices corrupted medicine, but he has saved hundreds of Velkari lives. He has cured illnesses our priests could not. How is this corruption? It goes against... I did not ask about tradition. I asked about results, the emperor stood. The Imperial Medical Council will spend 3 days observing this human. You will watch him treat patients. You will examine his methods, and then you will make a decision based not on what the texts say, but on what actually works. Jenkal looked furious, but he bowed. As the emperor commands, the trial was postponed. For 3 days, Hyunwoo worked under constant observation. Every priest on the council watched his every move. 1 year. Hyunwoo had been a prisoner for 1 full year. His life had become strange and complex. He was still captive, still locked in his room each night. But during the day he moved through the medical districts almost freely. Guards followed at a distance, watching but not interfering. Princess Mirza had become a dedicated student. She spent hours learning from Hyunwoo, absorbing everything he taught about diagnostic methods and treatment approaches. Several other young Velkari had joined as well, nobles curious enough to challenge tradition. Boram remained his constant companion and friend. She translated and helped organize his growing library of notes. Together they were building something new, a bridge between human and Velkari medicine. But Genkal watched from the shadows. The priest had been humiliated at the trial. His influence had weakened. Twice strange accidents had happened near Hyunwoo. A falling piece of equipment that barely missed him. Contaminated medicine that Bo Ram had caught before it was used. Dai Hyun, through the hidden communication network, warned that enemies were planning something. Then the plague came. It started in the military camps at the edge of Velkari space. Soldiers began falling ill with a strange disease, high fever, bleeding from the eyes and mouth, organ failure. Death came quickly, usually within 3 days of the first symptoms. The military tried to contain it, but the disease spread. It moved through the army like fire through dry grass. Within 2 weeks, thousands of soldiers were sick. Within a month, the disease reached civilian populations. The medical priests tried everything. Their traditional remedies did nothing. The sacred texts had no answers. The disease was something new, something unknown. Hyunwoo first heard about it when Commander Ravenel appeared at the medical center with a group of high-ranking officials. The commander looked shaken, which was terrifying on its own. Ravenel never looked worried. "The plague has reached Elthar Prime," Ravenel said without greeting. 50 cases in the city so far. The number doubles every 3 days. Our medical priests are helpless. He stared at Hyunwoo. "Can you stop it?" "I need to see patients. Take samples. Study the disease. Follow me." They brought Hyunwoo to a quarantine facility on the edge of the city. Inside, dozens of Velkari lay dying. The sight was horrible. Blood covered the beds. The patients moaned in pain. Medical priests moved between them, chanting prayers that did nothing. Hyunwoo examined several patients carefully. He took blood samples, tissue samples, everything he could gather. Boram stood beside him, pale but steady. She had insisted on coming despite the danger. "This is bad," Hyunwoo muttered. "Very bad." Back at his laboratory, which had grown much larger since the trial, Hyunwoo worked through the night. He examined the samples under microscopes. He ran every test he could think of. Princess Mirza joined him, helping with the analysis. What he found made his blood run cold. The disease was not natural. It was engineered. Someone had created a biological weapon specifically designed to target Velkari physiology. The disease attacked their immune systems first, then spread to major organs. It was efficient, deadly, and spreading fast. "This is from the Ashken," Mirza whispered. "Our enemies created this. Maybe, or maybe someone gave them the knowledge to create it." Hyunwoo thought about the war that had been raging for years, about desperation, about how far people would go to win. It doesn't matter who made it. "We need to stop it." Commander Ravenel summoned him the next day, but this time they went to the Imperial Palace. Deep inside, past countless guards and security measures, to a room where Emperor Halten himself waited. The Emperor looked old and tired. "Human healer, you have examined this plague. What can you tell me?" "It's engineered to kill Velkari specifically. It targets aspects of your biology that are different from other species. Whoever created it understood your people very well." Hyunwoo met the Emperor's gaze. "Without treatment, it will kill millions. Maybe more. Your empire could collapse." The Emperor's scales darkened. "Our priests say there is no cure. The disease is too aggressive. It kills before treatments can work. Traditional treatments won't work. But I might be able to develop something new." Hyunwoo took a breath. "I need resources. I need help. I need access to Velkari genetic databases. And I need human medical knowledge. The human databases are on Earth. We do not have them. Then you need to contact Earth." The room fell silent. Contact with humanity was limited and hostile. The Velkari had been at peace with humans, but it was a cold peace. Asking for help would show weakness, and in exchange? The Emperor asked slowly, "What do you want, human healer?" This was it. The moment Hyunwoo had been waiting for without knowing it. He thought of all the human prisoners scattered across the Dominion. He thought of Dae-hyun and Bo-ram and Soo-jin and all the others. He thought of home, freedom, he said quietly, for all human prisoners in Velkari space, and an end to hostilities with human colonies. "Give us that and I'll do everything I can to save your people." The Emperor stared at him for a long moment. "You bargain boldly for a prisoner. I'm bargaining for my people, just like you're trying to save yours. If I fail, the plague kills us all anyway. prisoners and captors together. Hyunwoo kept his voice steady. But I won't fail. Give me what I need and I'll find an answer. Emperor Halten was silent for a long time. Finally he nodded. Agreed. You will have access to everything. Human databases will be requested from Earth. If you cure this plague, all human prisoners will be freed and the Dominion will sign a peace treaty with your people. And if I fail, then we all die together, as you said. But you will have tried. The Emperor's voice softened slightly. You could have run. You could have let this disease destroy us. Your captors, your enemies. But you did not. Why? Hyunwoo thought about that. Because I'm a doctor. I save lives. It's not about who deserves it or who's my friend. It's about the oath I took. First, do no harm. Second, preserve life, always. The Emperor nodded slowly. Perhaps there is wisdom in the mammalian way after all. They gave Hyunwoo everything he asked for. A larger laboratory, more equipment, access to Velkari genetic databases that were normally top secret. And 2 days later, a transmission from Earth arrived with human medical databases and research on similar diseases. Hyunwoo assembled a team. Princess Mirza, of course. She had become skilled enough to truly help. Boram to coordinate and translate, and they brought another human prisoner from the factories, a woman named Jiwoo who had been a xenobiologist before capture. She looked thin and tired, but her eyes lit up when she saw the laboratory. You want my help? Jiwoo asked, her voice shaking. I need the best minds I can get, Hyunwoo said. Human or Velkari, will you work with me? Yes, God, yes. I haven't done real science in 2 years. They worked day and night. The plague continued spreading. The death toll rose into the thousands, then tens of thousands. Panic gripped the Dominion. Some cities were quarantined completely. The economy began to collapse as workers fell sick. In the laboratory, Hyunwoo and his team chased every lead. They analyzed the plague's structure. They tested hundreds of potential treatments. Most failed. Some slowed the disease but didn't stop it. Nothing worked well enough. The breakthrough came from an unexpected direction. Jiwoo was reviewing data late one night when she noticed something. Hyunwoo, look at this. The plague targets Velkari immune cells first. It uses a specific protein marker to identify and attack them. Hyunwoo leaned over her shoulder. Right, that's why it's so deadly. But what if we could change that protein marker? Not permanently, just temporarily. Confuse the plague so it can't find its targets. That would require genetic manipulation. Temporary changes to cellular structure. Hyunwoo thought rapidly. It's incredibly risky. The side effects could be severe, but it might work. They brought the idea to Princess Mirza. She understood the science now after months of study. You want to temporarily alter Velkari cellular structure to hide from the plague. Then what? Then the immune system has time to fight back naturally, Hyunwoo explained. The plague is deadly because it's so fast. But if we can slow it down, give the body time to recognize and attack it, we might win. Mirza's scales brightened. It's brilliant, and completely insane. That's how you know it's a human idea, Jiwoo said with a tired smile. They developed the treatment over the next week. It was complex, requiring multiple injections and careful monitoring. The side effects were harsh. Temporary weakness, nausea, disorientation. But in their lab tests on infected tissue samples, it worked. The modified cells survived. The plague couldn't spread. We need to test it on a live patient, Hyunwoo said. That's extremely dangerous, Princess Mirza warned. If it fails, I know. But thousands are dying every day. We're out of time. Commander Ravnell found them a volunteer, a young soldier named Takresh who was in the early stages of infection. He knew the treatment might kill him, but he also knew he was dying anyway. Do it, Takresh said. If I die, at least it meant something. Hyunwoo administered the treatment personally. They monitored Takresh constantly for 3 days. The first day was brutal. The side effects hit hard. The soldier vomited and trembled. His vital signs fluctuated wildly, but on the second day his fever broke. The bleeding stopped. By the third day he was sitting up and eating. The human transport ships arrived 3 days later. They were sleek and silver, so different from the dark angular Velkari vessels. Hyunwoo stood on the landing platform watching them descend. Around him, hundreds of human prisoners gathered, many crying with relief. Some had been captives for years. They were finally going home. Daehyun stood beside Hyunwoo, his arm around Soo-jin. The young navigator looked older now, harder. Captivity had changed all of them. I never thought I'd see this day, Dae-hyun said quietly. Neither did I, Hyun-woo admitted. Bo-ram and Ji-woo were staying behind with Hyun-woo for the promised year. They wanted to help build the medical academy, but most of the humans were leaving immediately. They wanted nothing more than to put Valkyrie space behind them forever. The human captain who emerged from the lead ship was a tall woman with kind eyes. I'm Captain Park. Earth sends its gratitude. You've all survived something terrible. Let's get you home. But before the evacuation could begin, alarms blared across the spaceport. Valkyrie soldiers ran in formation toward the central plaza. Hyun-woo heard shouting and the sound of weapons firing. What's happening? Sujin asked, frightened. Commander Ravnell appeared, running toward them. Coup attempt. Conservative military leaders refused to accept the Emperor's decision. They're trying to seize the palace and keep the human prisoners. Who's leading them? Hyun-woo demanded, Jenkal and his faction. They've convinced several military commanders that releasing the humans shows weakness, that your medicine corrupts traditional Valkyrie values. Of course it was Jenkal. The priest had been quiet for months, but Hyun-woo should have known he was planning something. Hatred and humiliation didn't just disappear. Captain Park drew her weapon. We need to protect the civilians and get to the ships. No, Princess Mirza appeared from the crowd, wearing armor and carrying a weapon. Behind her were loyalist soldiers. If we run now, the coup might succeed. My father's life is in danger. The legitimate government of the Dominion is under attack. This isn't our fight, Dae-hyun said. We're prisoners. Why should we die for the Valkyrie? Mirza looked at Hyun-woo. Because some of us tried to do better. Because not all Valkyrie are your enemies. Because if the conservatives win, the treaty dies with my father. There will be war again. More prisoners. More death, Hyun-woo thought quickly. She was right. If Emperor Halton fell, everything they had built would collapse. The reforms would end, the medical academy would be destroyed, and humanity would face a hostile empire again. How many soldiers are loyal to the Emperor? He asked. About 40% of the forces on the planet, Commander Ravenel said. The rest are either with the coup or neutral. It's close, very close. Then we need to change minds fast. Hyun-woo turned to Bo-ram. Can you access the planetary communication system? Maybe. Why? Because I'm going to give a speech, and everyone in Valkyrie space is going to hear it. Bo-ram, Ji-woo, and Dae-hyun worked together to hack into the main communication network. It took 20 minutes of frantic work while fighting raged across the city. Finally, Bo-ram gave him a thumbs up. You're on. Every screen, every device, every communication channel in the system. Hyun-woo took a breath and began speaking. Bo-ram translated his words into perfect Valkyrie. People of the Valkyrie Dominion. I am Hyun-woo. You know me as the human healer. I was your prisoner. I saved your soldiers. I cured your princess. I stopped the plague that almost destroyed your empire. Across the planet, Valkyrie stopped fighting and looked at their communication devices. In homes and barracks and command centers, they listened. Right now, some of your leaders are trying to overthrow Emperor Halten. They say releasing human prisoners shows weakness. They say learning new medicine corrupts your traditions. They are wrong. Hyun-woo's voice grew stronger. Strength is not about holding on to the past. Strength is about growing, learning, admitting when old ways don't work anymore. Your medical priest said many things were incurable, but I cured them. Not because I'm special, but because I was willing to question, to try new things, to put lives before tradition. The plague almost killed you all. Traditional medicine failed. But by working together, humans and Valkyrie, we found an answer. We saved millions. That's what cooperation creates. That's what openness to new ideas achieves. He paused, looking at the camera. The conservatives want to return to the old ways. They want to keep prisoners, to reject outside knowledge, to follow only the sacred texts. If they win, you'll be weaker, not stronger. The next plague will kill you because you refuse to learn. The next war will destroy you because you stayed isolated. Emperor Halton saw this. He chose to learn, to change, to grow. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. That's real strength. Hyun-woo's voice softened. I could have let you die. You were my captors, my enemies. But I didn't because I'm a healer. I save lives. All lives. Valkyrie are human, friend or enemy. That's what medicine means. That's what peace means. You have a choice now. Support the coup and return to isolation and stagnation. Or support the Emperor and embrace a future where the Valkyrie Empire grows stronger through wisdom, rather than force. Where medicine saves more lives because you're willing to learn. Where peace with humanity brings benefits to both our peoples. Choose wisely. The future of your empire depends on it. The broadcast ended. For a moment, silence fell across the spaceport. Then Commander Ravenel's communication device crackled to life. Then another. Then dozens. 3rd Battalion reporting. We stand with the Emperor. 7th Fleet confirming loyalty to Emperor Halton. Medical Corps declaring support for legitimate government. Unit after unit declared their allegiance. The speech had worked. Hyunwoo had reminded them what was at stake. He had shown them that change was not weakness but strength. Within hours, the coup collapsed. Conservative commanders found their soldiers unwilling to fight. Genkal and the other coup leaders were arrested. Emperor Halton's government survived. The Emperor himself came to the spaceport that evening. He looked tired but relieved. Once again, human healer, you have saved us. Not with medicine this time, but with words. I just told the truth, Your Majesty. Truth is often the most powerful weapon. The Emperor turned to address all the humans. You are free to go. All of you. The treaty stands. There will be peace between our peoples. Captain Park began organizing the evacuation. Most humans boarded the ships immediately, eager to leave. Hyunwoo stood with Boram and Jiwoo watching them go. Are you sure about staying? Daehyun asked before boarding. You could come home now. I made a promise. 1 year to help build the medical academy. To train the next generation. Hyunwoo smiled. Besides, there's still work to do here. You're crazy. But you're a good kind of crazy. Daehyun hugged him. Don't be a stranger. Come visit Earth when your year is up. I will. Sujin hugged him too. Thank you. For everything. You kept us hoping when hope seemed impossible. One by one, the transport ships departed. Hyunwoo felt a pang of loneliness watching them go. But he also felt purpose. He had chosen this. Chosen to stay and help build something new. The next months were busy. The medical academy took shape in a beautiful building near the Imperial Palace. It had classrooms and laboratories and dormitories. The first class of students included both Velkari and a few humans who had chosen to stay. Princess Mirza became the academy's director. She had learned so much in the past year that she could now teach others. She appointed Hyunwoo as the chief instructor, though he insisted it was temporary. You've changed everything, Mirza said one afternoon. They were setting up a new laboratory together. Medicine, politics, how we think about other species. I just showed you what was possible when you question assumptions. It's more than that. You showed us that being open to new ideas makes us stronger, not weaker, that admitting ignorance is the first step to wisdom. She paused. The council has decided to send Velkari students to Earth, to learn human medicine directly, to build permanent exchanges. Hyunwoo felt pride and hope. That's wonderful. It would never have happened without you. The Academy's opening ceremony was a grand event. The Emperor attended. Dignitaries from across the Dominion came to see the new institution. Human ambassadors participated, including Captain Park, who had returned to establish formal diplomatic relations. Hyunwoo gave a speech to the first class of students. You are pioneers. You're learning to combine the best of Velkari and human medical knowledge. Some will say you're betraying tradition. Others will say you're corrupting Velkari culture. Ignore them. Your job is to save lives, to heal the sick, to push the boundaries of what's possible. Medicine doesn't belong to any one species or culture. It belongs to everyone. Every technique that works, every discovery that helps, every method that saves lives, these are the common heritage of all thinking beings. Learn everything you can. Question everything you're told. Test your theories. Admit your mistakes. And never forget that behind every patient is a life that matters. Velkari, human, or any other species we might meet someday. The students listened intently. Among them sat young Velkari, who had grown up in the old system, learning from the sacred texts. But they were here now, willing to embrace new knowledge. That gave Hyunwoo hope. Boram established a research institute attached to the academy.